This is the Business Chat Podcast.
Welcome to the Business Chat. My guest today is Ryan James Miller. I'm really stoked to have this guy on. We had to go back and forth to get back and scheduled because of some fun Spectrum internet troubles, right, Ryan? It was awesome.
Yep.
Just a total drop off last week. It gave us a little more time, as it always does. We did not want more time, but we're stoked we're together now to get our notes together to talk a little more. And I'm just stoked that we're able to make the time, man. It's really fun to have been following you on LinkedIn, and welcome to the show.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate being here. And I through it all, every challenge, every whatever, it all gets to the place of where we're supposed to be. And so I'm sure we'll have some fun conversation.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, you're on the Industry Experts series here. How does that, when my producer and I looked around and he was like, what about somebody in sales? I didn't even skip a beat. So in my mind, friend, if that matters, if that's worth anything, I went, if I'm thinking of a sales pro, I'm thinking Ryan James Miller. So here you are.
It is humbling. Thank you so much.
And for those of you listening to or watching this, you can check Ryan out on LinkedIn. His activity is so much fun to watch, you guys. He's a family man, a man of faith. I'm going to put it this way, Ryan, you might disagree. He doesn't really have a filter. I think in sales, it feels like these guys that post just sort of copy paste stuff, and they may be tremendous people, heart of gold, but it just can get boring. Ryan's stuff's not boring. It's thought provoking. And he as a person is really his brand. And I think that's what's so fascinating about how you bring real expertise, this awesome background that we'll get into. And today you're kind of this performance coach, right? And you've got also this kind of way that you come into organizations and you're a speaker, right? So you come and motivate sales teams, and it's all the things. And sometimes I'm watching you online going, I'm exhausted watching this guy. So in your omnipresence as you're doing these things, before we fire into some of my questions, what you been up to the last couple weeks, man? Talk about a day in the life.
So I am a 30-hour a work week guy, or 30-hour a week for work guy.
Yep.
That is a commitment that I made about a year and a half ago. And so outside of the day to day, which, we're kind of closing in on the end of the year. And so I'm trying to finish well to make sure that we're tying up loose ends for our own business, as well as trying to plan for what next year is going to look like, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about later. And then on top of that, I'm working with my clients, trying to help them finish well and plan for the new year ahead. So That's all going from a professional standpoint, kind of compacted into that 30 hours each week. And then outside of that, I spend as much time as humanly possible with my wife and kids. Awesome. I've been married for 21 years. My wife is my best friend. I would choose to spend every minute with her versus any minute with anybody else. And then I have a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old daughter. And so the fact that both of them enjoy being around us means that I want to be around them as much as possible because time is limited there. And so we've been spending a lot of time out at the lake. We have a boat. And so we boat out on Lake Havasu in Arizona. And so we've done quite a bit of that. We've had some fun trips. Cool. My wife and I went up to Lake Tahoe with some friends to a concert to see Luke Combs a couple weeks ago. And awesome. We're just kind of running all over the place. And I joked this morning with a buddy of mine. I said, sometimes I think I need a vacation from my weekends, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I'm just super fortunate to be in the place I am.
Spoken like an entrepreneur, a married guy. And he's, again, for those of you out west, particularly Southern California's Orange County, Ryan is one of the, again, because, throw stones all you want, dude. I'm one of the Exodus guys that gave up, pulled the cord, but he's still fighting the fight. He's there. California is both awesome and crazy, but you're doing it. You've got a huge following. You're true to your family, to your faith. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to link all this stuff in the podcast, but he's one guy. I don't know if you remember this. I do. And it was very impactful for me when you and I met for lunch a few years back. What do we eat, by the way? Panera bread, or I don't remember. It was good.
Nope, Mendocino Farms. I remember.
Okay. Yeah. See, it's authentic. Again, you wouldn't go to some, but I just remember you didn't even skip a beat. You sat down, how you doing? And you were like, Drew, what do you want to do with your life? Oh no, he's one of those guys. Like, here it goes. But it wasn't you didn't stand on the table and pull some Tony Robbins thing and freak me out. You were just like, no, legitimately, like, we got about an hour. Just let's get to it. What do you want? And I was like, oh, man. And you then were talking about 30-hour work week. This idea that work doesn't need to dominate who you are, that why are weekends too? And we got, we had a good exchange about this European kind of 30-day work week, this 4-day weekend, and just how you kind of were somewhere in the middle going, I think we became, made an idol out of money and chase it. And on we went. It was just really neat. So I feel like this interview is a long time coming in the sense that we only got to kind of get acquainted, stay connected on LinkedIn. Here I've got this platform now where I really want to share with all my listeners and followers, millions, by the way, tens of millions. But
Perfect.
A growing curated group about, again, your industry expertise as a salesperson. And today I think everyone's most interested in what I've kind of seeded out there, which is this idea of a sales playbook, a plan, having any semblance of how you can survive turnover of a sales organization, how you can pass the torch, have consistency, and able to forecast. And I live in that world a little myself. Before we get into that, though, as I mentioned, our little shtick around here is to raise a glass to some local or some not so local drinks. So Ryan, what are you drinking today, my friend?
I am proud to be drinking my FNX post-workout protein. So I was joking with you, and I said, I just got done in the gym. It's something I do every morning, and so I thought, there was nothing more fitting than to throw in this amazing glass. I mean, it is so good.
Cool.
My post-workout protein, it's so good. So I'm pumped, man.
FNX protein, and you said it's a water beverage. That's not in your coffee or. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, people throw it in water. Sometimes you can do it in almond milk for a little bit, a little bit more thickness, but I just toss my powder in there. It tastes good. It's peanut butter chocolate. I'm a peanut butter chocolate guy. So, great flavor, good protein. It's clean.
Awesome.
So yeah, I dig it.
First protein drink so far for the show, historic. So it's great. We were talking about getting wine glasses and some maybe Boda bags eventually too. It's getting pretty exotic. I've got the Screaming Pumpkin from Griffin Claw in Birmingham, Michigan. I was mentioning to you, not typically my thing. So Griffin Claw, good job on a not so papery, pumpkin in your face kind of deal, but definitely fitting for the season. So with your little branded element to the screen, let's do the virtual cheers. Cheers, my friend. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, you bet. Man, so again, thanks for just kind of warming up the chat about just who you are, what you've been up to. Welcome back from your recent trip, like we're talking about, to Dallas, and get on a live podcast. It's super fun. Well, like I was saying, in this short time that we have, there's so much we can cover, and you have so much content, so many things that you're doing. I thought that most sales pros and most, professionals on LinkedIn would love to hear probably a more generic question about its sales playbook. People are thinking, who doesn't have one? We know what it is. But I've had some good chats with you. And again, I don't know how much you remember the details of us having that lunch, but it was interesting how the way that you kind of approach sales systems and the coaching you were doing, at least at the time. And I wanted to get right into that. And that first question being, again, tell me kind of first, before we go there, just kind of how you got in this field, your professional career story from a 30,000 foot view, to give folks context of who's answering these questions. Not everyone knows you, man. You're not celebrity A-list status yet, although I'm trying to help with that. So.
Oh man. So yeah, I, in my late teens and into, I guess, my very early 20s, so probably right at about 20, I was big into street racing. So I had a lowered Honda Civic, roll cage, turbocharged, nitrous, legit the whole thing. Some of my closest friends at that time were some of the early stars in the first Fast and the Furious movie. I mean, I was really in it.
Took the words out of my mouth.
But it was true. Like they really are
fast
like
and furious, and they were in the movie. Yeah.
And so I was into that scene. A friend of mine got me a job working in the warehouse of one of the companies that manufactured the high-end wheels for cars. And so I was just loving being in the industry. It was super cool. But after about 6 months, I was sick of being dusty and dirty. We were unloading containers of wheels. We were taking in returns, and things were dirty and greasy. And I kept looking inside the office, and every time I looked in there, it was air conditioned. They were clean. Right. They were smiling all the time. And I was like, I want to do that too. So I went to there was 2 owners, South African guys. They were amazing guys. And I went to them, and I went to Dennis, the one owner, and I said, Dennis, I need to be in there. Like, I want a sales job. And actually I had already gotten my friend a sales job in there before I even got my own sales gig in there. And so Dennis at first kind of pushed back on me. Then he opened the door. And nice. I took a job there, and I ended up probably 6 or 7 years in the automotive aftermarket industry, working for 3 different companies. From there, I realized that I was, as I am today, a loudmouth extrovert at times, but I was able to use that coupled with this desire to build relationships, to be successful. And so by the grace of God, very early on, I was able to be pretty good at that. And then that just continued to carry.
Man, that's nuts. So you didn't, kind of recapping that, this wasn't something you went to school for. And
Nope.
you even had it's the classic forklift driver in the warehouse kind of thing, just kind of laughing at office staff going, "Shh, suckers," and then over time that dialogue flipped of like, well, wait a second, joke's on me. They're all leaving on time and, not covered in soot and all that kind of thing. So that's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
So here you are, you move from blue to white collar, I guess. Is that kind of what we're talking about here? You kind of transition.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of just this transition. And yet, as an individual, again, I had no college experience at all.
Yeah.
So I was good in high school, but I just, for a lot of reasons, not relevant to this chat today, I chose not to do anything with that.
Sure.
And so this was a path that I just found that I enjoyed, that I was good at. So I continued on in that industry until 2006, and had kind of topped out at that time. So early 2000s. To make 6 figures was about the cap. Not that that was bad money at all, but I just kind of hit that ceiling. I wanted to kind of figure out what else was there. And so at that time, in 2005, 6, my stepdad was the vice president of sales for this regional, at the time, document management and print company. So they were a 60-year-old business, family owned, that used to do construction documents, so old school blueprints, turned black and white prints, and they were starting to do a little bit of digital document transfer. And they were killing it. I mean, the housing market was going crazy. The residential home building industry was kind of their top thing. And so I started going to him, and I was asking him like, hey, I would love a job there. And to his credit, he had been around me for 12 years prior to that, 10 years prior to that, and seen a lot of the bad sides of me. And so there was probably some hesitation to want to put me into a spot because of that. But also, he was a guy of just high honor and integrity, and he didn't want to show nepotism. And so he told me no, that he wouldn't give me a job. And I was cocky. I was in my mid-20s at that time. And so I told him one day, and I think it was early 2006, I said, Tom, that was my stepdad. I said, if you don't hire me, I said, I'm going to call the CEO, because I knew him because we did family picnics together and company things. And I said, if you don't hire me, I'm going to call the CEO. I'm going to tell him that you're costing him money by not hiring me. I'm going to get him to hire me. And he said, fine, do it. And so I picked up the phone. I called the CEO. And I literally said that to him. His name was Chuck. He's since passed away. He was an incredible man. And I said, Chuck, this is the deal. Tom won't hire me. This is why he says he won't hire me. He's costing you money by not bringing me on to that team. You have to bring me on. If you do, I'll be one of your top salespeople. He brought me in for an interview. He hired me on the spot. And I spent the next 5 years there. And again, just God's grace. I was fortunate enough we had 22 salespeople when I started. I was in the top 2 or 3 at that for the entire time there. We transitioned into a publicly traded company during the time that I was there. We were acquired by a large private equity firm, became global. I continued to be able to run in that top couple of percent. I led a sales team and a region during the time that I worked there. And so I was just finding more and more success as I continued to lean into these gifts that I was realizing I had in myself.
Yeah. And again, it's the fast and furious kid that had the fire in his belly, just needed the opportunity, and you didn't see it in yourself probably at the time, but I love calling the CEO and threatening, warning that he's wasting money, spoken like a sales guy. All guns blazing, right?
And I mean, there was kind of like 2 key things, one big misstep and then one huge opportunity that happened in the midst of all of that. One was when Chuck passed away, as we were this publicly traded company. This new CEO came in, and one day he had said to me, he pulled me in and he said, Ryan, he said, you need a mentor. And I laughed in his face. I said, are you kidding me? I said, do you see, I literally said, like, do you see the results that I'm putting up? Like, I don't need a mentor.
Mentor for
And
what?
that was the end of that. And so that was a huge misstep in my career early on. I was probably 28, 29 by that time.
Got it.
The flip side of that was we had a corporate sales trainer. His name was Stan Jernigan. And Stan was at that time a mid 50-year-old man. He was very zen, super chill, but man, he knew how to get us to do anything that he needed us to do. And I had so much respect for the way that he carried himself, the way that he managed the room, the way that he taught us, the way that he led us every time. And so that was when I got introduced to Stan. And every time that he would come back, every few months, I started to gain an affinity, not just for Stan, but for what he was doing. And so that was when there was this little twinge in my belly that started to kind of think, man, one day I could do that. One day I could go out and teach sales for myself.
Sure.
And so that was a big thing for me, was interacting with Stan and starting to build a relationship with him, of which, by the way, I still have today. So it's pretty cool.
Man, that is cool. And it sounds like, as you know, you've already kind of transitioned for us from the story to what you do today. And because you're doing it, right? You saw Stan and said, I think I can do that. You've been doing that and been doing a great job, in my opinion. And I'm looking at RyanJamesMiller.com, got that pulled up with these resources of yours. And, the subtopic today, the topic is sales, and you've got expertise. And I think a lot of folks can relate. Most, in fact, sales guys I meet go, I didn't go to school. Or I landed in this because I was really good at, I was a closer. Didn't know that's what it was called. And they started pulling me into close, but I was developing sales. And it's a fascinating world. Few understand unless you've been in it. And it's all sometimes mischaracterized. We're all the salespeople. I come in and close. I'm less good at prospecting, et cetera. And as we're talking about sales playbooks, what I found, and before we sat down for this chat, was that definition can just be, a Grand Canyon wide vision people have. Like playbooks for some turns into a guide. For others, it's step by step. Literally Ryan telling his team or another team, this is how to work. But Ryan, I got, just kind of a sub question. Do sales playbooks, and take it from here, are those industry agnostic? Do sales playbooks have to be, pretty much tuned for who you're talking to? And talk to me about your outlook in general. Just take that and run. I just want to hear your thoughts on playbooks, how you approach them.
Yeah. So on one hand, I would say that, a playbook is not our term, right? I mean, a playbook is really, I'm sure it was birthed because if you go by definition, it's really a collection of strategies and tactics for a team. And so that's just drawn from the sports world. And we would probably most closely associate that to, a football. And, so it's every single play that's drawn up both on the offensive, defensive, and special teams. And so on one hand, I would say that a playbook is generic in the sense that every team has one, whether that now it's a professional organization or sports team. Every team has one, but the plays inside of that differ. And so I think that then, we have to think that there is a common structure that we should probably follow, as it relates to generality of playbook, which I'm happy to talk about. And then inside of that, there's nuance, because we're serving different clients, we're selling different products and services, and we're different people.
I had a friend of mine, a mentor, in fact, unofficially, tell me the most dangerous thing that a business owner and that maybe a salesperson organization can do is be tremendously successful and not know how they work and not know why they're selling. Because the inference there's, you're going to reach the end of that cliff. You're going to come to the end and turn around and go, what was this based on? Right. And I think the question there being, what to you is a sales playbook and what not is interesting, because by your definition, it's a collection of different tactics based on scenarios that come at you. In some ways it is reactive. In some ways, I'm sure there's proactive aspects to it. But when you come to an organization that I know you do, we've talked about this a little bit, And they are somewhere in that, without being hypercritical here, a lot of businesses are just ready to hire AI, particularly startups get in and there's sales, sure. And they pull in an outside sales organization, but a true playbook that really hones in on the efficient things that are working with ideal client profiles, it's just absent. They don't have time, or so they think.
Right.
And that typical exciting, it's panic, but it's exciting. Revenue's great. Their sales are going nuts. When they approach a group, a guy like you, a consultant, let's say, to come in and just give a, objective viewpoint, what's the most typical flaw that you find? Is that groups are struggling to articulate, to document, or that their strategy is just completely absent? I'm just curious kind of what you most frequently come across.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest problem, I think, if I was to slap kind of like a general sticker on there, would be that they don't have a strategy. They're unaware. They are probably doing things, and some of them are successful in doing
Right.
things, but they don't have a structure or strategy to what
Sure.
they're doing and why that's, or and how to repeat that. And by the way, the way that is most evident is if they are unable to successfully hire young salespeople to come in and be successful in a reasonable amount of time. So one example, so I do a lot of work in the health insurance, employee benefits world.
Yes.
And any organization that is proven to be successful should be able to hire somebody brand new off the streets that fits the right profile of a salesperson in their organization, but should be able to hire somebody brand new off the streets within 120 days. They should be able to know whether or not they're going to be successful. And within 6 months,
Right.
they should be starting to create opportunities for the organization. But that is not the case. And so whether it's that industry or any other, what I find is they either struggle to bring people in, or they bring them in and they just get the crap beat out of them. And a year later, they're just churning people because they don't know how to set them up for success. They can do it for themselves because it's in their head, but they haven't put it to paper to help to enable other people to be successful too.
Yeah, it is elementary, Ryan, as this is to you, and as some of it is a little bit basic to me. I think that's the shock in my space in marketing and in consulting on brands, in the day job space I'm in, is you kind of approach that topic, come to find that they're a little bit going like, well, hey, you're 2 steps ahead of me. We don't have anything documented like you're talking about. And it's shocking not only to see how much success they're having, but how nowhere in the roadmap of the next year or two is the budget for sales structure, for process, and where sales and marketing kind of overlap and meet is very much, what you're talking about. The same railroad track you're laying down is going to create that bridge where sales and marketing are feeding qualified leads. And so without going too deep into any one of the 1,000 rabbit holes of this, again, on the playbook strategy side, a playbook being strategic, do you feel groups could better serve themselves by bringing in an outside consultant like yours after they've created some activity, shown kind of what works, what doesn't, what's churning? Or do you feel like, and again, this is such a wide question, so I'm going to try to rein this in, because there could be an e-commerce startup, right, with an electronic product. There could be a clothing brand. There could be a professional services organization. And those are very different kind of consultants needed. But in general, again, to broad stroke this, do you say, if I could pick as Ryan, the guy that's seen this a lot, to get in before they launch, ideally, to get in after they've launched and they've done some kind of beta, or really to come after they've really accelerated, gone through startup, gone through, investor rounds, and now they're kind of in this plateau legacy? What usually seems to be the ideal sweet spot to apply the best strategy and playbooks that you've seen?
Yeah. So definitely, in my opinion, both and here's why.
But that was the right answer, by the way. I was going to grade you on that, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Where's my sticker?
That's right. You get a happy face. Yes.
And the reason I say that is because organizations feel like let me kind of get things figured out before I bring some structure to this. And that period of time, that season of business, you're throwing mud at the wall and praying that something sticks. And you can't afford to spend to waste money, to waste time, not creating good opportunity. And so on the front end, if you have good structure, this is like something that's crazy to me. And this I see a lot in the tech space. They create these elaborate business plans, but they don't have a sales plan.
Right.
And I just don't understand. Like, I don't give sorry, but like, I don't give a shit how you run your business if you can't generate revenue.
Yeah.
And they have goals, they have metrics in place that they need to hit, but they're doing that because they're trying to attract money usually. But they don't actually have a plan to get there. And so I just don't understand why people are so ignorant to this idea that they need a plan ahead of time. And then once you have that plan, the beauty is, again, just like a professional sports team in a playbook, we start running plays.
Yeah.
And we start to gain feedback from the market, feedback from our own organization. And we say, oh, we need to make some tweaks here. Or when something's not working, instead of guessing, we go back to the playbook, we look at it and say, okay, we did this. Oh, we didn't do this the way that we should have. This is the tweak we need to make. So it gives you this I don't know, just kind of place to continue to go back to, this foundation to stand on, to help you move forward in the right direction.
No, I think that's tremendous. And it's fascinating. Again, like I said, from what I see and you see, it sounds like the same story, that they have a business development plan in place and usually running when I'm encountering these groups, and it sounds like you as well. And you kind of interrupt the party by tapping someone on the shoulder and going, excuse me, I'm just curious what y'all plan to do to inject some sort of template, if you will, for salespersons that come on board later. In fact, what do your sales guys do now? And there's this look of confusion, like you said, especially in e-commerce and technology. Hey, it's just, we put it up and, we built it and they come. And in some ways that can be, the worst thing, right? It's the guy that bet the trifecta at the horse race and wins the first time. It's like that might be the worst thing that ever happened to you, because good luck repeating that. And I guess that's the essence what I'm getting at today. We see so much in the general SMB, but I'd bring that down to say startup that are doing a lot of things right, by the way. Great branding, wonderful product and service, a grasp on what sales is and closing and even some customer journey. But there really, again, is a playbook missing. And here's the input I want to drill in for. What I think a lot of sales pros are listening for your response is, when the guy, let's say my organization hires you and Ryan's just the rock star and everybody loves him and he closes every deal and he's 10 for 10. But you go, Drew, no offense, but I'm out. I got this offer at XYZ, and this is what every organization goes through. And they get, if they're lucky, a 2 weeks notice. And sales guys, even as you know, it's much busier than that even. But you've even grown on one of your executives, let's say being the sales guy, and he or she moves on. And now you're left with the proverbial Rolodex, their contacts. That's how that transaction worked out. And you're flatlining and you're trying to reach out to that person. Hey, could you come back? Could we hire you for consulting? And I think that's a lot of the LinkedIn activity I'm seeing when I see salesperson for hire. We're looking for outside sales. There's like this red flag. If you're too late for those organizations, would you say that's one of those circumstances? Not ideal, obviously, but that's where a lot of listeners are in today going, well, because I'll bring up, where's your sales playbook? What's your strategy guide look like? And they kind of again go, somebody said something about that, Drew, but do you know where that is, Diane? There's this I think somebody put that somewhere. I'm going, yeah, you don't have one, do you? So again, that's, I think, the platform or the plateau that folks reach, is they get up to a point where they go, we knew so-and-so could do it. They didn't document it. Should they in fact document it, or can we build from scratch and have somebody come in and kind of reverse engineer our success?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, because it's really important, I do want to address the other one, which is the reason that most organizations have salespeople leave is because they don't have a plan for their salespeople.
Well, yeah, and it feeds back into the loop, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and most organizations make a serious mistake when they portray to their salespeople that glory is sales management. That is the biggest mistake. There is, like, most great salespeople will not be good sales leaders. It's just not how they're built. And so it's important that you have a future for your sales team. It's important that you have a trajectory for them. So that's important to think about. Again, that's for another conversation.
Yeah, but that's a great
Um,
point. Is almost secondary to a playbook, is what you're saying, is having some plan for your salespeople.
yeah, and actually, that's part of the playbook. At least it
Right.
is mine.
Right. Okay.
So then, to the second question, um, at at any time, I want to say it is relatively easy for an organization to create that playbook if they're willing to put their head down and work with somebody that is experienced in doing it.
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking playbook, a lot of it, so I'm getting ready to do this for a good friend of mine that we've known each other for years, and he's like, "Hey, we need to engage, we need to do this. We're growing really rapidly. We now need some structure because we're going to start scaling our team." And so the first part of this process is really interview based anyway, because when I'm talking sales playbook, I want to understand first, because this is what feeds everything. Like, what is your company culture? What is your mission, your vision, your values? And a
Okay.
lot of this they've done. So
Yeah.
it's not that they haven't. Then from there, I want to understand from your sales team, what are metrics for success? How do you define your roles? What do you expect of them? So
Yeah.
again, like, these are things they've probably done. And then when it comes to branding, what do you think your brand is? Have you
Right.
worked on that? Have you worked with somebody like you guys? Like, have you done that, and what's that look like? So I think that it's a lot easier than people think it is, but they have to put in the time, and they have to bring in somebody that is going to bring expertise to helping them articulate each step of the process.
Uh, just a side note, this really wasn't in my, I don't have much of a script, by the way, in case you haven't picked up on that. What is how much is technology for you, Ryan, as a sales guy? I think a lot of guys are listening, like leaning in with crickets right now going, for you, do tools and does technology help in just the general sales process, but particularly playbook? Like, do you see that as a big piece of it, or just a minor accessory?
It can be extremely helpful, but I think that it's become more of a detriment to our profession than it has a
Mm,
benefit.
yeah.
Only because, and again, this is contextual. Certain industries, they're just turning so fast, but
Yeah.
um, we have turned sales into business development or SDRs that are just cranking out outbound outreach, cranking, praying something that
Yeah.
hits, that we then start to feed that into this team. And so then organizations that don't even run with that front end model have replicated a lot of that high volume outreach, whether it's email or LinkedIn automation, phone calls. And I say that in the process of doing that, we have lost a sense of the human to human interaction that got us to
Right.
where we're at.
Hmm.
And it's fascinating how so many salespeople actually are unable to consistently relate to their prospect outside of selling their product and service. Like, when I start coaching salespeople
Right.
and I say to them, okay, so you had an opportunity with a prospect and it didn't go anywhere, or now wasn't the right
Yeah.
time. What's your plan?
Right.
Well, I'll reach out to them, and I'll just check in. And I'm like, no. Like, how do you continue to build a relationship with them over the
True.
next 3 months, year, 5 years, until they're ready to buy from you? And they don't know, because they've just relied on technology to do the work for them,
Right.
and they've lost that sense of how to just lean in.
And wouldn't you, yeah, and I love this, man. This is so where I wanted to camp out. And I'm sorry it took 34 minutes for us to get to this point, because this is really the juice of this whole thing. Is you get into this situation where, again, it's a chessboard for the sales guy in HubSpot and Salesforce, whatever. And I get that. And living in some good automation, meaningful funnels and journeys that are built based on your tone and language and all the things. It's been crafted brilliantly. You're saying that still can be a crutch. And back up a bit, because you said something that's just fascinating. You said, if they can't relate to the prospect, is Ryan James Miller implying a guy selling, I'll use your background, um, this Honda VTEC intake muffler, all the things, right, to be fast and furious, should and pretty much could that guy, do better by being in that industry or knowing how to relate to them? Talk about that a little bit, because that was a really neat point you made.
Yeah. So no matter what you sell, even if it's iPhone widgets, there is still this desire for us to know, like, and trust the people that we're buying from.
Absolutely.
If you, no matter, if you go to the gas station, if you go to the liquor store, if you have a good interaction with that person, you are far more apt to go back and frequent that spot. And so for us in sales, we don't spend near enough time building into that relationship. I coach some of the most innovative and high performing salespeople, and yet with the solution of all solutions in their industry, they're still struggling to open doors because they have so relied on the performance of their product and service, and even themselves selling it, that they have lost this sense of being able to just connect to human beings. And again, think about technology. And part of this
Right.
isn't our fault, but we had this hyper speed of technology progressing leading up to the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, we were solely dependent on it. And it's been amazing. Thank God for things like Zoom and, this for us to be able to continue to interact. But at the same time, when that became all things to everybody, we completely forgot over the last 2 years how to relate. And so some people are having a hard time just re-entering humanity as it relates to conversation. And so I encourage salespeople, if I had to start all over again, and if anybody had to start all over again, honest to God, with paper, pencil, and a pen, and a phone, you could be uber successful in almost any industry. It may take some time, and it may go slower than other people that are relying on certain components of technology, but it's there.
Yeah.
But we're again, as salespeople, we're always after the shiny object. What's the next thing? What's the next hack? And this is why, I don't know if you're familiar with, are you familiar with the guy Hormozy? He's all over YouTube.
Okay.
So he is this like super ripped guy. He built a gym and made hundreds of thousands of dollars creating fitness gyms. And still today, the guy, like, raggedy hair, hats on, he's wearing cutoff jeans. He is huge. Everything he talks about, and this guy is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars in a short couple of year time, I think. But everything he talks about is so simple. It's like, it's just go do the simple things. Just pick up the damn phone. Just have a conversation. Just build a relationship. Just listen. Just care. And that to me, again, that's what I'm trying to promote. This idea of authenticity and being authentic. The best relationships, the best business relationships we will ever build are going to be built upon us being attracted to one another because of what we like, what we enjoy, and what we value. Similar to you and I, right? I'm sure that there are things that we will disagree on, but all in all, when we connected, and then why it was so easy to go sit and have lunch and have a good conversation and then do this, is because we respect and value each other and like some of the same things. And so that means that if I could buy something from you and it made sense, I would. Vice versa, you, me. If I can help you to put you in front of somebody else, I would. And you, me. That is the key to business. And that's what we've missed. And so I think that that's the thing that, again, technology exposed or has exposed, is this lack of the ability for us to just connect on a human relational level.
Yeah. And you said so many things there, man. It's impossible to recap it all. It's awesome, but though that's what the point of these, the business chat is my platform for you to be able to kind of give folks a glimpse at what you're doing and get some insight into a professional. But at the end of the day, if you did not catch what Ryan said, my little recap I've been taking notes is, a sales playbook is not technology. The other thing that a sales playbook, almost right, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, and you can just correct all of it. A sales playbook is really trumped by, first and foremost, having a sales culture and a business development plan to bring on folks that are relatable and go back to the basics. Ryan, you sound like you would any day trade having two guys with a notepad and pen that cared for people, had a grasp on not just the product or service, but the customers buying it first and foremost, than you would a legion of today's trained right out of college guys that know automation and funnels. I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And so one of the quote unquote tools, and I just had this conversation with one of my clients the other day. She was asking how to track her follow up, her outreach activity, and her follow up with their prospects.
Yeah.
And so I always ask them because they're working for an organization. I said, "Do you have a CRM?" And she said, "Yes." I think it was Salesforce that they use. And she said, "But it's really hard because you have to go in and keep track." And I said, "Okay." I said, I'm like the technology guy. I've got my AirPods in. We're over video right now. I've got my phone off to the side. I like hack everything with technology that I can. And at the same time, the greatest gift to tracking outreach activity and follow-up engagement with prospects
Here it
is
is.
an Excel spreadsheet that you print out in an 11 by 17 and you use as a desk mat. And it sits right in front of you on your desk, and you can look at everybody that you need to call, when you last called them, very basic notes about what they said. And she was like,
Sure.
"Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
are you serious?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes." And then her next response was, "Thank you so much, because I'm so overwhelmed by needing to use all this stuff that this is one of the most simple things I can do." So anyway, so I love the simplicity in the midst of, there's enough complexity in our world. There's enough complexity in our jobs and everything. It's like, let's keep it simple, stupid. And this is one thing that I need to remind myself to keep simple.
Well, you've answered my third, final, fourth, fifth question, Ryan. What I was, I wanted you to bring to the table, show what you bring to the table that differentiates from other sales strategists. Now we're exiting a little bit of the, what's your outlook on this and that, playbook versus strategy, technology, and I appreciate you bringing up the pandemic. It's something we're not trying to focus on as much here, but it relates to what organizations, particularly salespeople, have gone through. But so you approach a company, they call you, they say, "Hey, Drew," and the guys say, "We should talk to you." What would you want to tell that person listening today that's on the fence going, "I like this guy. Everything he's saying resonates." And most business owners, by the way, I don't know how much you have realized this. It's refreshing when a sales strategist comes in and goes, "Have your sales force, build your funnels, do your marketing." All of that is generating toward a platform we sales guys can use. But it's very refreshing for them to hear that you could take, and probably would prefer, a less encumbered person by technology and preconceived ideas and train a moldable person. What do you bring? So all that to be said, what do you bring to the table? What one or two things would you want to say right now in closing that differentiates from other sales strategists? And I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to hear what you would say. I'm not grading you on this one.
Yeah, I kind of want to know what you think. But so what I would say first is, it is extremely important to have experience and expertise. There's too many gurus that have been doing this for 7 minutes and are charging people a lot of money because they've read books. And so I want people to be really careful. So you want experience, you want the expertise, you need strategy, you need structure, and you need to have things like technology. So all of that is really important.
Cool.
But what differentiates me from so many other people is I have a deep-seated belief in people. And that sounds so generic, but what I mean by that is,
no, dude, this is how we connected. Remember, you showed up and saw me and you're like, "Man, this guy needs a haircut." But we're both hippies that way. We both just like people. At the end of the day, we're like, this is the joke's on you if you don't enjoy humans. If you don't like people, then that's that you lose.
And again, the two keys to being the best are to deeply understand who we are and to figure out how to bring the very best of that to the surface and apply that to what we do. And so as it relates to sales, if I have this deep-seated desire to serve people, to care for people, to solve problems, to achieve total world domination in an industry segment, whatever that may be, and I can bring that to the surface and leverage those gifts and talents,
right,
dude, you can crush it. And so There are very few things that I believe that God has really, really uniquely gifted me with. And I believe that I have this ability to see inside of other people the things they cannot see inside of themselves,
Mm,
and then help those people draw those things to the surface and apply them to, in this case, the role of sales. I can teach anybody the structure. I can teach you how to open the door, to have the conversation, to engage with the prospect, to
right.
use the
Right.
script. But what I can't teach you is how to use your gifts to connect with them and what they need. And
Gotcha.
so I'm just bringing those things to the surface and I'm helping them be applied. And that's where true
Awesome.
magic happens.
It's a home run. And, wrap up to this. I'm on your site again, Ryan, and as folks have been probably checking out some of your content that don't know you, I'm looking at your guide to the personal reflection, realization, reinforcement. Does that guide kind of touch on pretty much what we've been talking about in terms of drawing that out and the individual salesperson, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's very helpful because, again, I mean, you can appreciate this because you do this all day long in the corporate world. We've probably engaged in mission, vision, values exercises in organizations for years, right?
Just a little bit.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and they can be super helpful when they're applied appropriately. But when is the last time an individual went through that? And the answer is probably never.
I
I mean,
see. Typically a group
some
exercise that you nod your head at. You went, hey, we all went to the training this morning. Let's go to lunch or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, I got you.
but
Yeah.
but but do that for you. What
Right.
what do you, what do
Right.
you deeply believe in? What do you care most about? What guides you? What fuels you? And what is going to help you continue to endure, honestly, what at times is one of the most brutal jobs that exists? I mean, we get told no more than anybody else in the world in sales.
Yeah.
You have to have the heart to endure. It's not thick
Sure.
skin, it's heart. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
being able to reflect like that is so important.
Man, that's killer. I mean, we got to have a part two to this. That's all I can say in response to all the stuff you're saying because it's just glossing the surface. Again, you guys, my guest today, Ryan James Miller. He's got passion. In case you haven't picked up on that, he cares deeply about sales, about people, and finding their voice in their corporate structure and business, but also like he's talking about, he empathizes with your salespeople, your leaders. If you've got that lone salesperson, you're lacking that sales process at all, and you're experiencing that churn, hit him up. I challenge you to do it. I dare you. He's going to be delightfully different and blunt, and it's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate hanging out with you.
Oh, thank you. It's been so much fun. I love being able to do this. I only wish we were doing it in person so we could have really clinked glasses.
I know, right? For real. Well, I'll be out your way in a little bit. I'll have to look you up for some more, again, not Panera, but some authentic dining experiences with you. Um, we got a Panera exec on LinkedIn right now going, screw these guys, man, all this Panera hate. I just don't remember what it was. Paninis and sandwich or something. It was delicious. In closing round, what's some stuff coming up for you, man? Plug a couple events, things going on. It can just be thoughts you're having, but in closing, you take it. What's coming next for Ryan James Miller?
So many things, man. But the thing I am most excited about is so we're recording this in early October. 2 weeks ago, end of September, I just submitted my first manuscript or first draft of a book that I've been writing for the last year. And just to like hint at this idea. So, as many people have experienced a lot of hurt, heartache, and tragedy in
Yeah.
my life. And what I began to realize was those wounds were actually what allowed me to reveal my calling.
Hmm.
And so I'm really excited to see that process through. The goal is to have it published March 28th, 2023, which would be my
Ooh,
45th birthday. And so we're working at that. And I'm really
how
excited to be
cool is
able to
that?
share that story with other people and enable other people to share theirs.
Man. All right. Well, that now you got me interested for sure. Well, we'll have to put something together to kick off the book's release.
For
Best of
sure.
luck with that. I mean, that can be an exercise and challenging, but also super fun. And, you find a
Yeah.
lot about yourself and all that kind of thing. Ryan James Miller, again, guys, look him up on LinkedIn. I'm not going to list up all his .coms, but you definitely need to go to ryanjamesmiller.com. He does a lot of things, has a lot of things you guys can follow and check out for sales coaching. Go to the site, at least download again those resources and connect with them on LinkedIn. This is a guy that truly will take the time and hear some of your pain. So again, Ryan, thanks for being on the show, man. All the best to you. We'll talk soon. All right.
Thanks, Drew.